On almost all the tractors, there's going to be a couple grease fittings under here. They're pretty hard to...
Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the channel. We are here at the Scott's Recreation Tractor Show in Augusta, Maine, and I'm here with Stefan. Thanks for interviewing with me. We're going to ask some questions to Stefan about, he does maintenance and runs a maintenance. Tell us what you do first off.
I have a service truck. Almost all the stuff I do is out on the road, coming out, doing anything from your basic service, changing oil to fixing when you break.
So you're the guy that makes it happen behind the scenes so you have a problem later on. So you're probably in a position to, really answer this question better than some people. So new tractor owners, most people that are buying tractors nowadays, I'd say 80% are new tractor owners. What would you think is the biggest mistake a new tractor owner make? And if there's more than one, feel free to elaborate.
A couple of things I see is people not knowing what to expect out of their new tractor, or size-wise, thinking they need something smaller but really needing something bigger, expecting more out of a backhoe because it's not like an excavator. It's
not a mini X for sure.
It's definitely not a mini excavator, but they are very powerful still. You're just gonna pull that stump. You might have to dig around it a few times. A lot of people, buy a smaller tractor but expect to have a bigger implement on the back, which you can do it in some cases, but I'd recommend, always going up one size. You're gonna wish you did if you bought the smaller one anyway.
Right, absolutely. I've run into that myself.
Yeah, that's pretty much some of the most that I see of mistakes.
So we hear things like, I get literally 1,000 posts a week about tractors and asking questions. Why is the loader too slow? Or why is the loader slow? Or what can I do? Talk about loaders a little bit.
The loaders are slower. I've ran all different brands of tractors. The loaders are a little bit slower on the TYMs, but they have a lot more lifting capacity.
So it's kind of a trade-off.
You gotta
compromise
that, exactly.
Now, for in my case, to offset that, I'll throttle up pretty high, and it does two things for me. Like my 474 has Regen on it. Well, I've got 360 hours on the tractor, and it's never went through Regen because I run the engine pretty hot all the time, which makes my loader move. It's pretty fast, but I could still go ahead and go up and down on a log that's 2,000 pounds. Yeah. Literally over 2,000 pounds.
I have 74, and I noticed that, if I'm just putting around and I need that loader to move a little bit faster, you idle it up, you're going to get a little bit increased hydraulic flow, and it's actually better for the machine. It cools the hydraulic more.
So talk to us a little bit about Regen. A lot of new tractor owners are, that's the scary thing with Regen, because you hear all the horror stories from back when, Tier 4 first come out, and, the people I talk to nowadays, they don't really have that much problem with it anymore. What's your thought as the guy behind the scenes that fixes all that?
I have a lot of calls on it. A lot of them are just, not being properly walked through. It's their first time. They've never done it before. It's a very simple process. I'm glad it's not. Once you get into some of the bigger tractors, you get the urea, the DEF.
Right.
But on these, it's more of like a catalyst burn. You can compare it to like a gas vehicle, I would think.
Right.
And it's basically just heating up that DPF.
You're talking in a different language, DPF. Tell them what is a
particulate filter.
So that's a filter in the exhaust. Okay.
The big canister that's in there, that's basically like a honeycomb. It's like a ceramic honeycomb basically, and it traps particles, so it puts out less emissions. And when you do a regen, it's not like injecting DEF like a diesel truck would.
Right.
It's basically closing a valve in the tailpipe and keeping the temperatures way up so it can burn out and clean out that.
So ever so often it heats up that filter, burns it off, and then what comes out is better for the environment.
Yes.
All right, Stefan, so we kind of covered some of the things that are more commonly asked. Let's talk about like maintenance stuff, loader bolts, greasing. Talk to me. What's your feedback on that?
All right, at Scott's, we mark all of your loader bolts with like a paint marker, so you can see it's easy. We have them torqued down from when we build them, put them together. The paint marker is a great indication to see, if someone's not going to take a wrench and go and physically put it on there and check that loader bolt. It's great to just walk around and look and say, oh, yep, the lines are matching. My loader bolts haven't loosened up. And if they don't have those marks, it's great to put a wrench on them and check them, because when they start loosening up, that's when you'll start having breakages.
All right, so let me break this down for, again, a lot of guys that are watching our channel, they're tractor guys, they know, but there's a lot that are brand new. I mean, they really have never been around tractors before, but they know they want to be self-sufficient, they want some acreage. So what you're saying is, when you guys put the loader on, you torque the bolt down and make a mark so that the operator can come back, and if they see that that bolt has turned away from the original 2 marks, that it needs to be addressed. So I run into this a lot where I make the assumption. I grew up on a farm. I worked on equipment my entire life, but sometimes I make the assumption that everybody, gets this. But if you've never done it, you've never done it. So doing our channel, it's opened my eyes to, the fact that there are a lot of people that are just as capable, but they just don't know yet. They will know, and
You'll learn.
They'll learn, and so that's why I wanted to go into that much detail.
Greasing, I explain it to people, if you're going to go out and use your tractor just for maybe an hour a day, I would say every 5 to 10 hours, grease it. If you're going to go out and use your tractor all day, doing a lot of dirt work, getting dirt stuck in those pins, I'd grease it every single day. It pushes all that out.
Right. I'm a big firm believer in greasing. We've got, 330 hours of pretty nasty kind of work that we do, and our pins are still, just like the day they came from the factory. They're clean and they're tight. And I literally have had people say, "Hey, I'm having trouble with my tractor. My loader is completely loose. All the pins are loose. What's wrong?" I'm like, "How often you grease it?" And the answer was, "Well, I've never greased it." And we make that assumption that they know, but if you're going to buy a new tractor, make sure you ask your dealer about when you need to grease it. It's not something that's going to be happening. It's not going to be something that's going to be happening just at the 50-hour service and the 100-hour service. That's something that the operator has to do.
Yes, absolutely. I would say at least every 10 hours at least to grease that machine.
Sure, and I can understand. If you're coming from a rural, from a city lifestyle to a rural lifestyle, and your only experience is with a car. Well, we don't do anything now with a car except carry it in and have the oil change.
Yeah.
And then the service tech does everything in those intervals. But as a tractor operator, you have to grease your tractor. You have to check your oils, because where a car is going up and down the road, my case, I'm going to the woods, and I could actually rip a limb could come up and hit an oil line. So if you don't check your oil the next day, you're setting yourself up to fail.
Good habit to get into, checking all your fluids. Theoretically, if you're not seeing them hitting the ground, then they shouldn't be leaking, but it's always good to check. You might not see it.
Right, especially park on a bunch of leaves, you just definitely don't know.
Constantly moving, it might only be leaking under pressure too, so when you leave it for the night, you might not see a puddle underneath, but when you could have a hydraulic hose that's leaking when you're using it, it's a good habit to get into, checking all your fluids, and honestly greasing it every time before you use it, if you're going to be using it for that day.
Absolutely.
That is things like we grease ready for hair, because it's a linear. You got it up here, all alongside any pit point, basically. With the company.
On almost all the tractors, there's going to be a couple grease fittings under here. They're pretty hard to see. You might have to move your pedals a little bit to get to one of the grease fittings that's kind of hidden on the back side. We got all these grease fittings here on all your pivot points. They got worked out end of every cylinder.
So if you're working this thing really hard and you're in the day, say you go to lunch, is it a bad thing to come back and grease the gloves?
Absolutely not. What? It's cheap insurance. It really is. You got a $4 tube of grease. Even just to replace this pin is probably $60, $70, and that's if nothing's damaged. If you start damaging these cylinders, any of that stuff, it's going to get a lot more expensive. So it's really a good thing. These are they're in the work area. You're going to get dirty dirt and everything, especially if you have an implement. A lot of your implements are going to have grease fittings.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to interview with me. This is Scott's Recreation, and you guys have how many locations?
We got 4 locations now, and always at it.
So, and you guys are the biggest TYM dealer in the nation now. That's awesome. So if you've got questions and you're in this area of Maine, tell us where your areas you serve.
We have a store in Turner. That's our main location for tractors. We do Manchester, Orono, Herman, and then our new store, Central New Hampshire Trailer.
Okay. So if you're in this upper portion of the United States and maybe across into Canada even a little bit, you guys, if you got questions and need some help, check them out.
Thank you.